Welcome to the Fit for Halter podcast. We're here to bring practical content and community to the amateur halter exhibitor. I'm your host, Amy Zabel, and I interview people from across the halter horse industry. We'll learn new techniques, hear about the hottest products, and get to know one another. If you grow in your knowledge and we gain more exhibitors in the ring, this has been a success. It's a laid-back environment. Prepare to be inspired and maybe take some notes. Welcome to the Fit for Halter podcast. I am super excited to talk about some friends that have just arrived back home from the World Show. Laurie and Logan Lorenz from Lorenz Quarter Horses in Murray, Kentucky are with us during this episode. Laurie and Logan, you just want to say a quick hello?
Go ahead.
Hey, thank you for for inviting us to do this. Pretty excited to talk with you tonight.
I'm Logan.
Absolutely.
Great to be here.
Glad to have you. We are looking forward to, I know I'm very selfishly looking forward to hearing about your journey and more about your story with the halter industry. So let's just go ahead and get started there. Can you both tell us a little bit about your background? Halter horse world, whatever that might be for you. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I think it starts with me. I grew up, my parents raised quarter horses. In fact, they owned one of the first registered quarter horses in New Hampshire. So back in the day when they would come out and they had to inspect the horses to see if they were eligible for registration. So they were part of that experience in the 1950s. And so I was raised on a horse farm they were breeders and they showed, and that's how I grew up. So, and then when Logan was born, just naturally had the genetic defect of loving horses.
I don't know that I'd call it a defect, but it's certainly an expensive alteration.
No, I mean, I've had a love for it my whole life, and I just like being around them. I started riding when I was 2, and then I've just had a passion for the conformation side of it. You know, it's always been preached to me that it's supposed to be form to function, and that's where the halter class really started, because my grandmother was there from the beginning. So I kind of have the history of how that class started and what we're supposed to really be looking for. So, you know, I've been very blessed to have some great mentors growing up.
Awesome. So then, did you just naturally, with your horses, roll right into the halter industry, or was there ever a time where you showed under saddle?
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, we rode and did halter. One horse did everything. So I personally loved doing the trail. That was my favorite. And then, you know, the halter was kind of an aside. And when the kids were little, we did the all around, and we lived in Ohio then, and it was a pretty competitive youth world in Ohio. And so they did fabulously, were high-end point, you know, winners for the Ohio Youth Association when they were little. I have a daughter that, you know, she was riding and doing all that, but then she diverted into swimming, but Logan stayed with the horses. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I did ride, and we had a lot of success. And like she said, when you grow up in Ohio and showing in Ohio, every weekend is like the Quarter Horse Congress. So, because all those kids that compete at the Quarter Horse Congress, you're showing against every weekend. So, I do like to ride, but the halter and the conformation side is where my passion is.
I hadn't considered that the state of Ohio probably has a high concentration of very competitive showing all throughout the year. Hadn't considered that.
Yeah, the Ohio Youth Association is very strong, continues to be really strong. And those kids are amazing. Yeah. So it was a level up situation when you showed up.
I bet. but well prepared, I guess. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. So tell us a little bit about the family side of the business. Tell us what it's been like working together as a team, and then share if you have any memorable moments or challenges that you have faced.
Yeah, you want me to go first? Well, obviously, it's been incredibly special having the time with your family. I think when the kids, when we had the entire family showing and doing things, we spent a lot of time together. So, sometimes people talk about quality time versus quantity time, and you can't, in my opinion, have quality time without quantity. So we were together, we traveled, we were on the same mission, working together. So that made us really close. And that's been really special. I think some of the challenges with that is we were together all the time. And so sometimes that can be a challenge. And then
Logan just shakes his head.
So there's that part of it, but mostly it's been, great. And then I think too, as Logan has grown into a young man, he's really wanted to take on, the more, a role of making more of the decisions and doing, taking it in the direction that he wanted to take it in. So probably through that transition of me kind of backing and him backing away and letting him make more of the decisions, that was a little bit challenging, but now pretty much I'm doing the paperwork and he's doing everything else. So
we've had quite a bit of success though.
Yes,
I love it.
Since that power has shifted.
Yeah, I think there was
maybe we need to have separate interviews. Logan's side, mom's side. Oh goodness.
Well, there was a lot of sentimentality that went along with the horses, and so that was challenging when he was like, okay, I know that this is a special one and there's sentimental, but do we need to breed for sentimentality or do we need to, form to function? So that was challenging, but he's done a great job. So
I think, one of the special moments for me was when my mom won with our stud LFL Allegiance, JJ. I fit him all the way up to about a month before. So I fit him, we took him to the Congress, he won the Congress. And then we decided to leave him with Dewey just a month before the World Show, just so he had that extra little political push to get over the hump. And so it was really special. We foaled him out together and his mom was my last youth horse.
And we foaled her out together.
So, and it was kind of a special moment, full circle. When he stood up, we both knew that he was going to be a champion someday. So it was kind of cool to have that full circle, that was really special.
Yeah. And to be a part of it from the beginning, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So as we were chatting, you just got home from the World Show last night. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about what just happened for the two of you at the Quarter World Show. So you've seen some long-standing success, but also some recent success just as a few days ago. Can you walk us through your experience at the World Show, perhaps from preparation to competition? Tell us a little bit about what that looks like in Murray, Kentucky.
So as far as, the preparation of the horse, Clint, you assess them as, when they're first born, and he had all the characteristics that you look for in a great show horse. And we decided later to cut him, in the early part of the fall in August, because I had a feeling that he was going to be more competitive gelding for the Congress more so than the World Show. And, he didn't do very well with that. So, right before Iowa, I was like, I don't know if we should take him to Iowa. I don't think he looks as good as he could, and part of that was his full brother Preston was such an amazing horse. He was the kind you dream of raising. And he ended up getting hurt right before the futurities last year, and we didn't get to show him. And so I had a lot of, personal stuff with Clint because he wasn't quite matching what Preston was. And so I was like, well, he's just not quite as good as Preston. And my mom came out to the barn and she told me, he looks really good. I think we should take him. And then it was kind of one of those things. He just wanted to be a show horse. We hauled him to Iowa, and then all of a sudden he just matured and everything fell into place. And it was just like, where was this the whole time? I wasn't not
Yeah.
really excited to bring him, but he just was like, you know what, I think I want to do this. And so every step, every horse show we took him to, he was reserve at Iowa, the Breeders' Halter Futurity, which is one of the most competitive places to show halter horses. And then, we brought him home and he, for, I don't know, was it 4 days?
I think it was only
Oh, it
4
was only
days.
4 days. And then we left for Fort Worth, Texas to the Halter Million. And we had a tremendous amount of success with him there. He was reserve paint world champion. And then we were kind of like, well, he wasn't looking good when the entry deadlines were due for the Quarter Horse Congress. So we didn't enter him. But then he came on so much at, in Fort Worth. I called Dewey and I said, do you have an extra stall? Could I stall with you? And he said, I think I've got an extra stall if you want to bring your colt. And, we were home for 2 weeks before the Congress. Well, I don't know. Was it 2
wasn't
weeks?
that
It
long.
was about
Yeah.
a week.
It was about 10
week.
days. Yeah.
So we were home for a few days and, we took him to Congress and he had an unbelievable Congress. And I remember hauling him up there. I knew he looked really good. So I called my mom and I said, I think we should late enter him to the World Show as I was driving up to the Congress, because I'm like, he's just doing everything right, And so we paid the late fee to late enter him. And so that was really nerve wracking. And then we had an unbelievable Congress. And then when we got home, he kind of had a little bit of a slump there for a few days. And I was like, well, we've had a tremendous year with him. And, this is a lot to ask of a baby, there aren't very many of, I think he's the only one this year that has done all four. And so I was like, well, I'm going to just kind of keep asking him a little bit and gave him a few days off to rest. And then just kept asking him a little bit. And he came right back to form, and it was just like, wow, most of the time when they kind of fall, I don't want to say fall apart, but he kind of lost a little bit of weight with the stress of traveling and whatnot. And they don't come back together that quickly with babies. And he just has done everything right. And so when we got to the World Show, it's really amazing when you have one that special that just likes to go show. And it's incredible to have the
I really
success that
appreciate
we've had this year.
Yeah. Well, and
I
you worry when
appreciate-
they're babies. You don't want to push them so much, but he
Right.
took everything in stride. And that's why we didn't, enter him for all the things, because you just don't know on a baby. And then when he just, he loved it, and he just came on stronger every time.
Every time he showed, he improved.
Yeah.
He grew more, he gained more weight, just everything that you want a show horse to do, he's done.
Yeah. Get to the show, lay down and rest. He
Yeah.
never not ate. He did really well.
He's kind of funny. At home, he's a little bit higher and he likes to jump around and play in the stall a little bit more. When you bring him to the horse show, he's just like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. He lays down, he sleeps and eats, and it's pretty funny.
That's fantastic.
I was really worried about bringing him to the futurities because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get him shown because he's pretty high at home. And then he's like, oh, I'm an old pro. I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I was a little terrified when it was my turn to show, but he was great.
That's awesome. I really appreciate several of the things you said. And just the general impression that I get of the way that you are handling him, and I'm sure it's like that with other horses, where you're just evaluating and then making that decision to move to the next step, and evaluating and making the decision, and hearing you say that you ask him,
Yeah.
like you are paying such close attention to him as your partner. That's really cool. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
tell
very
us, sorry.
important. You're fine. I think it's very important that you don't ask more of what they can do, because when you have that relationship with them, they're going to give you everything that they have when you ask them, and to not push them beyond, and just make sure that you're looking at them, you're watching them, and you're listening to what they're telling you, because they'll tell you exactly what they can do and what they can't. And I think that's something I'm very fortunate to have, be a third generation and have had people that have shown me what to look for. So when I'm asking them, I almost speak their language, and so I have a lot of the responses to when they're telling me this is how I'm feeling.
It's such a good reminder of the importance of the relationship that we have with the horse, not just the mechanics and the logistics that it takes to do what you do, but the relationship and the importance of that. So cool. So remind us, how did things turn out at the World Show specifically? What classes did you go in, and then what were your placings there?
So originally we had just entered him into the amateur and the select weanling geldings. So the amateur was first, and I showed him in the amateur, and I was fourth with him. So, which is very exciting, and it's a tough place because you're just outside the hardware, but it's also exciting because you are really competitive. Anytime you're top 5 at the World Show, I mean, you're very competitive. So that was very exciting. And then my mom showed second.
Yeah, I showed in the select, and I just had no idea where I had placed. And so when I went to the wall, I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I think I'm fourth or fifth. And so when they called out the horses and they got to the fourth, I started getting ready to walk out, and it wasn't my name. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in the trophies. So that was really exciting. And I remember looking in the stands, and some friends of mine are just going crazy. Oh my gosh. And so then I was sure I was bronze. And so I started walking out, and they didn't call my name again. And so I, at that point, was beyond thrilled. And they called us out reserve. And it was just, yeah, I mean, this is something you dream about from the time you're little. And I remember thinking, if I ever got to the World Show, that would be amazing. But to win trophies and do that, it's just amazing. So
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
it was pretty
and
fun.
then did he show in the open as well?
He did. I showed him in the level 2, and he won the level 2. And then Dewey showed him Dewey Smith is a really good close friend of mine. I interned with him one year, JJ's yearling year. So JJ, our stud, and I have a really close relationship. I was able to intern his weanling year with Monty and Anna Horn. So I lived with Monty and Anna, and I had a show season with them. So I was with JJ as we were preparing him for the fall futurities. And then the next year, as a yearling, we decided to send him to Dewey, and I was able to intern with Dewey that year also. So we've had JJ and I've been with him every step of the way, and we've grown together a lot. And so Dewey and I were really close friends, and he's a very important mentor to me. And so I asked him to show him in the level 3 open, because he has a little more stroke than I do, because I am still an amateur and he is a professional. So, and Dewey was fourth with him, but it was only 9 points that separated him between third. and that's
Wow.
very, very close
Mhm.
for the World Show. So that was
That's
exciting.
awesome. Congratulations on all of that. Oh, that's amazing. So good. I could almost just feel it for you.
Yeah.
And had watched many of the classes. So then what did it feel like when they announced your name for both of you, um, when you're standing on the wall? What does that feel like?
I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing feeling. Just everything that you've worked day to day for, everything that you've dreamed about, um, the whole breeding process come to fruition, you know, especially when, Logan's ultrasounding the mares, we're collecting the semen, creating this foal from scratch and then watching them be born and bringing them along. I mean, there's nothing like that. It's amazing. So, and just,
Mm,
getting that recognition at the World Show, um, doesn't matter where you place, really, just getting your name called is amazing at the
mhm,
World Show. And of course, this was the 50th World Show, so that was even more special. Just, yeah, being part of that and
Awesome.
then, having that experience, it was pretty amazing.
It's
Yeah.
always a dream come true. Um, it's very special because Clint's full brother Preston got hurt and never had the opportunity to show. So it's kind of a full circle moment, being able to have this much success with Clint. I mean, it's very special.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned it being the 50th AQHA World Show. Was there anything else that stood out that made this particular year or the experience unique?
Yeah, I mean, I think being the 50th, there were lots of people talking about memories and
Mm,
people and history and, all of those things. Just watching friends and having experiences and, Terry Bradshaw winning a Globe. And of course, Ted Turner, we got a signed hat from Ted Turner. He had a straw hat that, um, so we got one of those and, just the history of everything and being part of
yeah.
it. I think people were really remembering people that had passed, people that had just, been a big part of the industry. And that was fun to be a part of.
I
Share.
I think that the crowds were very big this year, and there was a lot of excitement. So that's very hopeful for the future of the quarter horse industry as a whole.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's what so many of us are hoping for, right? Because there's this threat or, conversation about the horse industry struggling and in particular halter. So it's great to hear
Yeah.
Yeah.
just that feeling of community and all the history that's shared, and probably is a really good reminder for people of why we do what we do and why we love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple things about your journey leading up to the World Show and going to a show and deciding to go to the next one and go to the next one. Was there anything that you did differently between shows or right before the World Show that was different than what you normally do as far as preparing Clint?
So for preparing Clint, um, I have said, I ask him what he wants to do, and
Hmm.
then I follow that. I don't work my babies very hard, as hard as some people work them. And every horse is different. Sometimes
Yep.
they can handle a little bit more, a little bit less work, and depending upon how their their feed intake is. And I think that really depends on, the part of the country you're from, heat, cold, all that makes a
Hmm.
very big difference on how you prepare
Hmm.
one. But for me, it never matters what the show is. I'm always preparing like it's the World Show, because that just helps you once you get into that moment, you're ready for the World Show because you've
Hmm.
already had all that preparation. I think for me, I'm a big visualization person. I like to visualize having success and things going well, just like an Olympic athlete would do. So I always visualize things going well and playing out the way that I would hope. Um, you know, I think it always comes down to just paying attention to your horses and providing them what they need. Those breaks, sometimes I didn't work him like his regular work schedule. You're looking at your horse and that's the part that you have to learn. There's nothing that, someone tells you this is how you do it, this is what you feed them, it's just experience, and having someone that you can ask, what do you think about this? This is kind of what I'm dealing with this one. And, what's been your experience? How have you dealt with that? Or being able to lean on your own experiences, like, oh, I remember when I had that one that I had a problem here, and this is what I was able to do to help them through that. So that's kind of, this being, I don't know, is this my 4th year fitting my own? I have a lot of those answers now. And so it just, everything went well with Clint. And I think part of that is just having the experience now to know when to push and when to back off.
And I would say, just that daily discipline of looking and doing what you need to do every day, but then knowing when not to do things and when to move forward. But it's a daily discipline. It's not made overnight. What you see in the show pen is months and months and months of preparation and daily discipline and daily efforts. We kind of talk about the fact that you can't make up for missed, work. It's gone. Those days are gone and you can't make up for it. You can't double duty and work them twice on a missed, because you missed a day. It's just gone. So that's been probably one of the learning experiences of there's just no making up for lost, missed workouts, missed groomings, missed things. It really makes a difference. And then the visualization, I really appreciate Logan preparing Clint, but I also appreciated him helping me mentally. We practice obviously before we show, and when he took me to the practice ring, we went in and he was walking me through that, and he was like, okay, Mom, you just need to take a deep breath. You know what you're doing. This is Clint. This is how you do it. And just, talking me through, what are you going to do? How are you feeling? Did you feel that went well? Let's do it again. And just, and then the day of the show, deep breath. How do you feel? Are you settled? He's going to do it for you. He can do it, all that. And so that's really important mentally. So I really appreciate that, my son does that for me. So
yeah,
which, as a mom, you feel like you should be doing that for your kid. But when he's out there coaching me in a professional way, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. I don't know if you want to go into like details of the workouts and, feeding and all of that, or if you want just a general, explanation.
You did great. I feel like I'm getting more than I bargained for just in listening to your coaching techniques. And I feel like I need to be taking notes. I have the pleasure and the fortunate ability to replay this over and over, as we all will in a few days. But no, you did great. Thank you for sharing. Everybody brings unique insight, and the value that you place is different than the value somebody else places on certain things. So we all learn from each other, but I really appreciate your style. What about day-to-day responsibilities in the barn or in preparing for a horse show? How do you guys divide and conquer in that area?
So day to day in the barn, I handle the horses and do all the work with the horses and fitting and do most of the breeding, so I do a lot of the ultrasounding and collecting and processing of semen, a lot of the feedings. My mom does help a lot when you have a need for two people. She fills that, and she does, some of the more grunt work stuff. I really appreciate that. But like the paperwork and
Mm.
a lot of that side and dealing with, people calling for semen, that is all on my mom.
Yeah. And I think when you're foaling out, it's great to have two
Yes.
people. So we do the foaling out together. When you're ultrasounding mares, you need two people. When we collect the stud, two people. But the day to day, obviously when he's traveling, then I'm, out there doing the whole thing by myself. But, mostly handing most of it over to him and transitioning out and into the desk.
You guys make a great team.
I
So
think we found that's what works the best with avoiding conflicts.
Oh, yes. As you're growing and maturing and just, there's a lot happening there, but it sounds like you guys are really, obviously the fruit of your labor is evident. So it's very cool. Very cool. So you haven't been home for very long, but can you think of a takeaway from the World Show? Great memory, learning experience. What was a takeaway for you?
I think just being able to spend time with people, just very grateful for Dewey Smith and Jerry Robinson. Great family friends. I've known Jerry for a long time, Dewey's partner. It's great to have friends like that. I think also very happy with where our breeding program is, and every year we're just a little bit more competitive. We're figuring out what works a little bit more. So I think we're right on track there with where we want to be. We always want to be more competitive, but every year we're gaining and getting closer to where we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think being there, having that confirmation that what we're doing is working, and I don't know. I think just the experience of competing, and each time that you go compete, you get a little more confident, and you think of the things that, I might have done this a little better, or I might have prepared a little differently. Even just in the morning of getting ready, it sounds silly, but the timing to get into a class, excuse me, is huge. And just like, when do you want the horse banded, and when do you want the black on their feet, and when do you want to be dressed, and just that timing. Every time you go and compete, it makes a difference. And so I think for me, just going through the competing experience and getting more confidence from being there. And when you're competing with the best of the best and all your peers, and being in the mix, it's pretty exciting. So the takeaway of, hey, we belong, and they and people welcome you, and that's a good feeling.
I also would like to add, it's the last World Show to be shown in the Jim Norick Arena, so that was very special, with it being the 50th, being able to show there as a youth and walk down the tunnel, under the sign Gateway of Champions one last time was very special.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people posted pictures of that very spot for the same reason, like, this is it.
Yeah.
Pretty special. So you mentioned a little bit about your breeding program, and that it's coming along, and going to a show like that kind of gives you some insight there. What kinds of things as a breeder do you take in or find that are helpful to you when you head to a horse show? is there anything that goes through your mind differently, perhaps because of your breeding program?
I think for me, it just validates that the things that you're looking for in your mares and your stud, it just validates that you know what you're looking at. You know, when I am selecting, you know, for conformation, you know, one of the most important things that I look for is really correct hocks or posty hocks. And I think it helps to explain why that's important. You know, the quarter horse it's a fastest horse in quarter mile. And so postier correct hocks equal speed. So that's kind of why that is an important part of the conformation. You know, good slope shoulder, long shoulder helps lengthen the stride. So that's one of the things why that's very important. You know, you want that neck set up really high because that's also an indicator of having a good slope shoulder. You know, not a steep shoulder, but a nice, you know, 45-degree angle. You know, and so those are some of the really important things that follow, you know, the form to function side. You know, obviously good legs, and that's very important. But, you know, those are the harder things I think to breed off of one, you know, that can take a couple generations. So if you're starting there, you're starting with being very close to raising a good one.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
So-
too, I love going to the shows where there's babies, because then you can assess, you know, offspring of other horses, and then you know the consistency of what they're doing. And then you can, you know, when we're watching classes, we're judging classes where we want to know who the sire and the dam and how the crosses were. And I remember being a kid, and, you know, I grew up in the East Coast, so the Congress was the big deal for us. We didn't really get to the World Show. But I remember my mom and I with the Congress catalog, and we'd be like, oh, I like whatever number it was. And then you'd look in the book and it would say the sire and the dam. And we go, oh yeah, that was a good cross. And we'd make notations in the book. And, you know, so you're, you know, looking at conformation and sires and dams and all those things. And so I think it's really important that you go to shows and you go look at horses live and know, so that you can make better decisions for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's easy to judge a class or look at a class as, you know, someone that's just watching, and it's easy to look at the, you know, very correct horses and, you know, the top horses in the class, but you should be evaluating all of them and looking at the way they're bred so you can see some trends, you know, and then you have a better idea of how you would utilize those breeding horses.
It's good. So shifting a little bit to focusing specifically on your breeding program, tell us a little bit about your breeding operation, and then maybe either some things that set you apart from others or details that you like to focus on.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I think we're having a little signal problem. Sorry about that. Tell us a little bit about your breeding operation, and maybe what sets you apart from others, or maybe some things that you like to focus on in your breeding program.
I think our breeding operation, because we're a small family, you know, owned and operated, and so we're able to give some significant customer service and help people. People will call and, you know, they have some issues or things that they're needing advice on with their mares. I've had people that have called that have never shipped semen. They've only ever done live cover. And they said that they talked to several stallion owners and they didn't really have the time to help them to understand the process and what they were going to need to do to accomplish that. And so that, I think that's been really helpful to bring in some new people and have the time to answer those questions. So I feel like that's been a customer service part, that we're able to offer. So on the other side, I don't know.
I think we don't have very many, so we're able to give a lot more time to our mares and our babies because we don't have the volume. So we're able to spend a little more time having our foals be a little more broke. We can catch illnesses earlier, before it spreads through the whole barn. We've been able to take on some more special needs mares that other people can't handle because they don't have the time. I think, every mare that we've brought in has a very specific purpose and what we're trying to accomplish. Whether early on we had multiple different, bloodlines on horses to cross with our stud, and now we're kind of narrowing down and figuring out what works with him. So that's very exciting. This group that we have now is very, very correct and kind of a proven bloodline. So this year we have 5 babies coming by our stud, and a bunch of those are going to be first time crosses, but it's been proven crosses. So it should be very, very good. And it's very exciting, even though we kind of are anticipating it to be what it's supposed to be. And so far, when we've had some of those crosses, it's been very consistent. So that's very exciting.
So are these 5 babies coming in 2025?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. We will be watching for those to come along. What have been some of the challenges that you've incurred in running your operation, and how do you handle them?
I think obviously shipping has been, that's a challenge. We've had some pretty great success with UPS. They've been really good. And we don't have an airport near us, so the counter-to-counter thing we've not been able to offer, but I feel like our mare owners have been pretty fabulous. And we haven't had any requests for counter to counter because they're working with their vets and, not missing ovulations that are, happening too fast. So we've been able to work through that pretty well. But I think those are a couple of the challenges I think anybody experiences.
Sure.
I think, with starting JJ, he's a young horse. We haven't had the volume of mares to breed to him that a lot of these other studs have the opportunity to breed. But with that being said, he's had a tremendous amount of success with the limited foals that he's had on the ground. I think one of the other challenges is that we do everything on our own, so we're not hooked up with a trainer, with a professional that would be interested in coming to look and buy foals by our stud. So, and they're not necessarily pushing their clients to breed to another stud that's outside of their program. So I think that's been a challenging point. But we're very happy with, the babies that he has had on the ground, for the limited mares that he's bred so far.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the impact that you see him either he's starting to make or he is making on the industry. When you were mentioning being at the World Show and looking at a lot of babies at one time and just seeing what's happening and what crosses are producing, how do you see JJ fitting in or making an impact? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been pretty exciting because he's beautiful. He has, and I don't want to offend anyone, but in my humble opinion, he has one of the prettiest heads, neck set, that whole, just presence. And he
Yeah.
does pass that on, because you can tell a JJ baby when you see one, because they just have that beautiful head and gorgeous neck. And so I love that. And I love that he has a really nice 45-degree angle shoulder, which makes very strong, correct front legs.
Yes.
And I feel like that he has really made a mark that way. Those horses have a future in the riding pen. JJ is a gorgeous mover. He has a beautiful lope. I wish that we had the time to get him broke out and ride him and, pursue that part, but it's between the breeding and then when we're gone showing, it's been a difficult, where do you send him to break him out, that kind of thing. But he is a gorgeous mover, and I feel like his babies have a long future in the show industry, not just with Halter, but being able to be ridden and then being that he's, 7-panel end, and he can offer his service to any mare, whether they have panel, things or not. And so I feel like that's been a really strong.
Yeah, I mean, he's very pretty, and that is one thing that he kind of has stamped out there. Everybody knows that he provides a lot of pretty. Also he is 7-panel negative, and he has a tremendous amount of muscle for being panel clean. And I would put it out there that he's probably the heaviest muscled horse that's panel clean out there, and especially a double registered horse, being registered quarter and paint. I would be very difficult to find one with more muscle and pretty than he has. Another thing that definitely gets underappreciated in the halter industry is temperament. He has that willing to please you temperament. He's not a very combative horse. He just wants to work with you. And when you're asking him to do stuff, he wants to please. And so it's very nice to work with his babies as opposed to babies by some other studs that we breed to. You can definitely tell a difference. They're willing, you don't have to work as hard with them because they just fall in line and follow what you're asking. And they're smart, so it's just very nice. I think that part gets overlooked in the halter industry quite a bit.
Sounds like he makes a good traveler too.
Yes.
Clint just went all over the place like it was he already knew his job.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit more about JJ. With futurities being such a popular aspect of what we do, tell us where we can where his babies are eligible. What futurities can people anticipate if they have a JJ baby or they're watching for his offspring? Where can we see them?
Yeah, so he is eligible for the WCHA, the big money futurity, the Michigan Quarter Horse futurity, the Breeders' Trust with the paints, and then the platinum. Okay. They'll be eligible for the platinum. I'm trying to remember.
He has been for the Michigan, and I imagine we will be doing that again, or we're discussing putting him in the Michigan again.
Yeah, no, he's going to be in the Michigan. We already did that. So, okay. And then I think we're going to
talk to the bookkeeper.
Yeah, right. We're going to choose one more, and we haven't quite decided yet which one. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So lots of opportunity.
The Kentucky Breeders Incentive Fund. He's part of that as well.
Awesome.
He has been in the past for the Breeders' Halter futurity, but with just recently getting his paint papers, we're kind of excited to explore the platinum and the Halter Million side of it with WCHA. We think that is probably where he can be most competitive, and with his babies now being dual registered and being able to show at the World Show at the same time, it just makes the most sense.
Okay. It's helpful too, for people who are, at this time of year, potentially shopping for next year's babies, looking at who's bred to who and then where they'll be eligible. And I find myself looking in that kind of direction of so much strategy. There's a lot of strategy involved in not only the showing, but the futurities and that whole logistics side and administrative side, really, of showing. So before we move on to talk about, you touched a little bit on the Kentucky Breeders Program. So what recommendations do you have for a mare owner when they're selecting a stallion to breed to?
So when you're looking at conformation, I think you have to be very honest with your mare. And no horse is perfect, and you have to be able to pick out her flaws and make sure that you're picking a stallion that has those things that can improve upon your mare, and has a produce record or a siring record where he can he's fixed those things on those mares. I think that would be the biggest thing. And then also, not just looking at one picture of a stud, if at all possible, going and looking at them and seeing them in person, or having multiple pictures and looking at offspring, and not just making a spur of the moment decision like, oh, I saw this ad, this is what I'm going to do. Just doing a little more research to make sure that it's something that is going to do what you want to do.
And I think too, now that we have the availability of the genetic testing, as a mare owner, you need to know your mare. It's not always, I don't think all the associations make mare owners, do the full testing. Maybe that's changed, I don't know, but make sure that you do know and be informed and ask questions about those things. And then, find out, like he said, go see horses. I remember as a kid, our family vacations were trips to Texas and different places to look at stallions, to see them in person. Because sometimes, I remember going and seeing stallions and thinking, oh my gosh, they're so much better than their picture. And that they had other qualities that you might not have picked up on, just their personality and just different things. So going and looking is important. And then looking at babies. So not just falling in love with the stallion, but seeing what they're siring and what they're doing. I think that's really key. So
not just falling in love with one horse that they've, sired or produced, making sure that you're loving all of the babies that they've sired or produced. And seeing, multiples to know that, okay, this is that was just a fluke, or that one was out of just a really good mare, or, you know what I mean? Just something, not just, you're like, wow, that was just incredible. Some of these studs, I think a lot of people don't understand the volume of mares that they're getting. So these trainers and exhibitors are able to pick from a large pool. And, it is a numbers game with some of that. When you breed a lot of mares, there's going to be a cross that hits, or you're going to get better mares. And so you're going to be able to find those gems. When you're breeding a small number, that's one thing that I've noticed with our program. We've bred to a few outside studs every year, and consistently, my JJ babies have been the better. And some of our mares that we've bred outside have been our better mares. So it's kind of one of those deals where, I'm very impressed with the consistency. We haven't had a dud out of him, in our program, which is hard to do there. He's had very competitive babies with everything we've tried on him. So, and some are always better than others, but, there hasn't been a throwaway where you're like, ooh, that didn't work. We need to find, as this is not a halter horse, we need to find another avenue for them, in a performance class, or being a ranch horse, or, finding a job. We haven't had that. They've all been very good conformation horses.
Mm. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the Kentucky Breeders Incentive Program. How has being a part of this program helped your breeding operation?
I mean, I think that that Kentucky bred horses are very desired because, I don't know if everybody knows how that Kentucky bred works, but your stallion needs to be in Kentucky. And then for the quarter horse part of it, the mare has to come to Kentucky and be bred, and then they can leave and come back and be foaled out in Kentucky. For the paint part of it, the semen can be shipped out of state, but the mare has to come to Kentucky to foal out. And then when those babies are, certified Kentucky bred, they're eligible to earn Kentucky incentive money for the rest of their lives, their show career. So, that I think the money per point was around $100 a point. So you don't have to show in Kentucky, which a lot of people think that it's Kentucky incentive. So you have to show in Kentucky. It's based on the American Quarter Horse Association points. So when you earn those points, no matter where you earn them, that's what you're going to get paid on. In the Quarter Horse program, it's capped out at 46 points that you can earn the money on. But that's quite a bit of money. And so I think people that like to show and go down the road and, show every weekend, it really offsets their costs. And so it's another way of, having some financial benefit to earning those points. So I think it's been very desirable. And people, as they're learning more about the program, we're having a lot more interest in breeding to our stud because he is in that program.
It also pays for the paints also, not just the quarter horses.
Right. So the paints pay, and they don't have a cap on the paints. You can earn as many points as you want and get paid on all of those. And Appaloosas have the Kentucky incentive program as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you found it to be particularly valuable? You mentioned that people are learning more about it. Do you find that people are coming directly to you and to breed to your stallion because they're a part of that program?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And also when they're looking for babies, a lot of people I want a Kentucky bred baby because I want to be able to go and show and earn the money. So breeders that are looking to breed are very interested in that program. We've had several people that have hauled, mares to our vet so they could breed in Kentucky and then have come back and foaled in Kentucky. So yes, I think that people are, and then when they're buying babies, they're looking for the Kentucky bred as well. So I think that's been really beneficial for us.
I think it will be more beneficial as, our offspring matures. I don't think necessarily people are looking at it when they're looking for futurity babies, but as the horse matures, that's going to be a very big market. So when you're buying a futurity baby, after they've outgrown the futurities and they mature and they're a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old horse, they still have the opportunity to go show for a lot of money, unlike some of these other, offspring that once they're done with the futurities and they age out of the futurity classes, they're done showing for the money. Ours can continue to show for quite a bit of money.
That's a really good point. Though it further promotes the longevity of the halter horse because we know that they have a future, right? Either in halter or in other disciplines. But there's an attraction to the younger horses because of the futurity money. And yet the Kentucky money sustains that opportunity through,
Right.
yeah, as long as you show the horse. It's awesome. It's really good. Do you see over time that particular program attracting more stallions to the state of Kentucky?
It did early on, and then they
Okay.
had such a flood of horses, they had to drop how many, the amount of money they were paying per point. And so a lot of people left because they weren't seeing the benefit. But now, there aren't very many horses that stand in Kentucky now, so the money just keeps increasing. So I think as it increases, people are going to start looking at the benefit of that and consider coming back to Kentucky.
And I think also the race commission in Kentucky, that is where the money comes from. And I feel that there's been a big push to increase that money and to draw people back to Kentucky. And, it's the horse state. So I think they're doing a lot to improve that. So I think they're going to do a lot to enhance the program, and it'll continue to grow.
Yeah, it's not a dying program. It's only getting bigger, and the money's only getting better. It's not something that they just did and are kind of letting go. They're asking the question, how can we make it better? What can we do to increase the amount of quarter horses, paying horses, and Appaloosas in the state of Kentucky?
Yeah. And I think people will, I think it will draw stallions in to Kentucky so that they can have that benefit. I think it's definitely a pull. I know people have asked us if we're going to be standing outside horses and, doing that. And I think that's an area that Logan would grow into.
Yes.
So,
yeah, awesome. So looking ahead to your future, maybe immediate or longer term, what are some of the goals for your breeding operation?
I think to maintain what we've already accomplished and try to improve and just be more consistent and more competitive every year. I mean, that's, I think, everybody's goal. I don't want to rest on, oh, we've made it, we've achieved what we set out to do. There's always room for growth and improvement.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, adding stallions to the program. We have a 2-year-old that's coming up. And, just breeding for that next stallion would be fantastic. And then, potentially offering some outside services as far as foaling mares and, maybe standing an outside stud. And I know Logan has some
personal
things.
side of it. I am considering giving up my amateur status and taking some outside training horses and looking into the process of getting my judge's card. So that is definitely, coming down the pipeline. So that's exciting for myself.
It's very exciting. From my seat, which is a casual observer and an exhibitor myself, but I've had the pleasure of sitting with a lot of people so far in this podcast journey. And consistently, we're talking about the need for younger generations to be coming into the industry, whether it's for pleasure or as a profession. So it's very encouraging and exciting to hear that that is something in your future and our future, because we get better when you come in as a professional. So that's super exciting. Very cool. Tell us how you see the role of family farms or smaller operations and the future of the stock horse industry.
I mean, I think that I love to see smaller farms doing things, breeding their mares and raising their own babies and just having the pleasure of that entire experience. As far as standing a stallion, I don't know that that's like for everyone.
Sure.
It's a very complicated, can be risky for the horse and people. I mean, so that's something that there's definitely a bit of training and experience that goes along with that. So I don't know that that's for everybody, but I feel like everybody should have an opportunity to raise a baby, and I can see that growing and becoming more people wanting to be involved with that. And I think that would be just amazing to see more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the backbone of the industry. It's the small people, the small breeders that just have a dream of raising that better one, that great one. I know for us, it was always, how do we get there? So I think those small breeders, family farms, if they're inexperienced and they need to find a mentor and reach out to somebody that knows a little bit more or is where they want to be.
Mhm.
And then don't get offended when they give them their honest opinion. I think a lot of people really love their horses and they should. But when you ask a professional or somebody who is where you want to be, what's your opinion on this? Take it. I know for us, we've had horses that were very sentimental to us, but they weren't taking us where we wanted to go. And so it was very, challenging to decide, well, we're not going to breed them anymore. Obviously, they have a good home with us and we're going to take care of them, but you have to be responsible, and only progressing the breed and putting horses out there that are going to be competitive, because we all want horses to have good homes, and you can give a horse a good home when you create a competitive horse. When you're breeding for, average or below average horses, I've always had a tough time with that because I love the animal. And so when you breed an animal that isn't going to be competitive, you're kind of setting them up for a harder life, you know. And so I've always, taken that very personally, that I need to be a good steward of this animal and make sure I'm setting them up for a good life.
Yeah. Such wisdom. Thank you. So last question. Anything coming on the horizon that you haven't shared with us that's exciting to you, whether it's a show or a breeding decision or any projects that you have going on?
I think starting our young 2-year-old and hopefully being able to get some mares bred to him, that'll be a big exciting thing happening this breeding season, and seeing some of the new crosses that we have coming that we haven't seen yet.
And we have a daughter of JJ that's having a baby this year. So seeing how his, mare line is producing, and that particular filly is like a 6th generation in our breeding program.
On the bottom side.
On the mother's side. So that's going to be really exciting to see, more branching out of our program. So I'll be really excited to see that.
Okay. Anything else?
I can't think of anything. Just the anticipation of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Foaling season now, so and the mares are all heavy pregnant right now, so the anticipation is just building.
Yeah, I bet. Not a whole lot of rest, is there?
No.
Between the end of your show season and now getting ready for the girls and the maternity ward. Well, let's hear, where can we find out about Lorenz Quarter Horses? Where can we find you online?
Yes, so we have our stallion has a Facebook page, LFL Allegiance. And our website is almost ready to be up, and it's going to be his name. It's www.lflegiance.com. So, and his name is, it's a play on his mother's name. Her name is Elige. And so it's Elige. And then we liked allegiance. And so we just changed the beginning of the word allegiance to Elige. So it's allegiance, which we thought it was such a fabulous name, but no one pronounces it right. and no announcer. They all pronounce it elegance. And so if I were going to do that again, I would have not do that. But
It does.
It was
kind
a
of
really
work.
good idea at the time.
It does work because he's so pretty and he has such a presence. They just assume it's elegance because of
how pretty
how
he
pretty he
is.
is
But
and how
yeah.
much presence he has. But yeah.
But it's in the name of, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for sharing all of your insight and hanging out with us. Like you've probably not even recovered from your trip or even unpacked, but
No, I
thank
think
you.
we haven't been home 24 hours yet.
Yeah.
No. Oh, yes. Thank you. Just for spending some time, not only with me, I feel blessed by hanging out with you too, but then the rest of our audience and industry gets to enjoy not only getting to know you and living vicariously through your experience, but what's to come. It's pretty exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Hey, if you're an amateur or a professional willing to share your story or bring content that helps us with our halter horses, you can email me at fitforhalter@gmail.com.